We are Greg and Leah, the host of Evolve, the #1 podcast about relationships, and not just the tender or toxic romantic ones, but all kinds of relationships with many people, places, and paths.
And we aren't here because we know or understand it all, simply because we are working to evolve and asking others to join the evolution.
So join us in this next episode of Evolve.
Welcome back to another episode of Evolve with
Greg
and Leah.
We're going to make this quick. Come here.
We're going to have a quick episode here, or that's the plan.
A quickie.
No, a quick episode. Thank you.
Afternoon quickie.
Oh my God. Okay, so we're going to talk about money. That's what we want to talk about, our relationship to money. And this probably could be like a whole series in
That's
and
why
of
we're going to make it quick.
Yeah. But I just thought that, we should touch on this real quickly because it's in everyone's mind all the time. And especially in the last, 2 years when we've had this amazingly, increasingly, cost of living spike that just is horrendous. But I wanted to touch on a base on, maybe what was your thought of money real quick growing up, and I'll tell you mine, and then where are we at now? So, roll it.
Money. Real quick. I don't remember, other than my parents would say we were poor. Now I'm finding out maybe we were a lot more wealthier than I thought. But I don't remember lacking anything. We always had food. We always had things, whatever. But my mom would always, whatever gift was given, my mom would always add on.
It's not much.
I know this is not much, but she always would try to justify that it wasn't. It was just a little something that all we had kind of thing. Always having that.
So what was the narrative in your home about money? Or what were you educated even? How were you educated in money in your home? If not by words, example, or observation.
Just spend whatever you needed, whenever. I mean, I don't remember. There wasn't other than the fact, like I said, as a gift was given, and so I found out at a very early age that I burned out of money by 19 with credit cards and.
Oh, so you got into debt really young?
Real young, because I was making a lot of money when I was. At 19, I was a manager for Albertsons.
Okay, so actually back up a little bit more because I know you and I know the stories, but no one else out there knows your stories. Okay. You had to work for everything you wanted,
right.
Though.
So
if it didn't fall into a quote unquote cheaper category.
Right. So if I wanted something,
yeah,
it wasn't until I became aware that I had off-brand.
By being in school and seeing that this is what kids had, but you don't have it.
You got at the time I had Kmart off Trax. Trax was the shoe of the before. Actually, Chuck Taylor's that was pretty popular.
Were they expensive because that was a name brand?
Chuck Taylor's you could buy for I don't know what expensive was. I don't remember, but we didn't have. I had Kmart specials is what it's called, the blue light special, and so. Yeah, we'd go to school, and if you had, you didn't have Levi's or at least Wrangler, you were not cool. Yeah. You were you have Kmart jeans. I mean, it was bad. Now Levi's dropped its status. By the time I got in high school, it was Jordache and Sergio Valentes and all that.
But it's interesting that you're saying you didn't. So did you not realize that, quote unquote, maybe your family was poorer than you thought until you got into school?
It seemed that way because, for instance, my Cub Scout uniform I actually bought because in Cub Scouts, what are you like?
5 years old and above.
My parents claimed or said they didn't have enough money to purchase the whole uniform, so I bought my shirt on my own. I had at the time I inherited a lawn business from my brother.
Oh, I didn't know you inherited it.
Sort of.
That's the first time you've said that. I thought you created it.
He had 2 customers, and then I.
Oh, okay. This is news after 25 years.
Yeah, he didn't feel like doing it, so.
Okay, so at 5, or you were a little older, because Cub Scouts starts at 5.
But I earned money from other things. I'd sell stuff. I was
a little entrepreneur.
Yeah, I had a snow cone machine going.
Look at you.
I had I repair kids' bicycles.
If you could see his face, and he's got this puffed up chest feeling, his eyes are glowing, super proud.
Yeah. I did that shit. But no one would. I mean, people felt sorry for me, so they bought the snow cones. I guess.
Well, and one
muddy
day,
hands and messy face, and
he was like, if you can see, what's that guy, Drew Carey, as a child, that was pretty much you and your brother. Like,
unless my brother was Drew Carey.
Yeah. He absolutely was Drew
not.
Carey.
I was.
But I'm just saying those glasses and like you were skinny. It's true. But yeah, okay. So like you grew up with a narrative of constantly we can't afford.
Right. But we had enough. But
you
stuff.
Never felt you lacked anything.
I never.
What about like holidays? Like for Christmas, you got a lot of gifts. You felt
my
like
grandparents were always giving us great gifts. Like
okay.
Actually, it was there when it came to money. Like I bought my first car. My grandmother, I borrowed the money from my grandmother, but
Did you pay her back?
Paid her back.
Oh, okay.
I had a.
Then that's a borrow, not a loan or a
coupon book. She didn't charge me interest, but I paid her back.
Who had a coupon book? What?
She made a coupon book, just like
when
you had a loan back in the day. You get a statement, and you'd have to send the check in or the cash with
with this payment and
payment.
Yeah.
It was a payment.
But she
book.
made it for you. She wrote out a booklet.
I had paid her back $3,000. I was.
Your first car was $3,000.
$3,200. I bought a Toyota.
And what's a new car now? Like 40,000 and above.
It was a '79 Toyota Corona.
Corona, not Corolla.
No, it was Corolla. It was a '79.
I was going to say Corona's beer.
Yeah.
I think.
They did have a Corona. My friend had a Corona.
All right, don't get distracted. We're talking about money, not cars. I'm not sure how we could use cars to talk about evolving into a new mindset or a new being. But
so my mindset was, and like I said, by the time I was 19, I was working for Albertsons grocery store. I was the third person manager of the store. I was making really good money for the time.
Well, you said like 80,000, and that was back in the early 80s.
I didn't make 80,000. No.
Oh, I thought you said 80,000.
No, my best year there, I made, I think it was 58,000.
But still, in the early 80s, I feel like that was probably
it was
pretty
for
good.
A 19-year-old.
Yeah, for a teenager.
I was driving a Trans Am, and
so I'm gonna back. I mean, I'll say my childhood was filled with, extreme lack and scarcity for sure. I just remember always being hungry. I didn't think we'd have food. My mom couldn't pay the bills sometimes as a single mom. So like between 2 years old when my parents got divorced up until she remarried, I was 9. So 7 years, I just felt like we're always struggled. Holidays, like that's why I asked you, like, did you always have presents under the tree? If I was with my dad, my biological dad, and his parents, we had a lot of presents. If I was with my mom's parents, who I believe both parties, both my grandparents' side, to me are very middle upper class. Like they had money. When my mom got divorced, like it just like all hurt. Like she just went down and lost everything, it seems like. So I grew up with her and hence adopted as well this scarcity mindset of just never having enough. And I mean, it's not that she didn't try. She wasn't working the system and trying to be one of these whatever moms. She had like 2 or 3 jobs at one time. We had food stamps. We had people helping us out. But I just remember we just didn't have a lot. And like Christmases, I can recall one Christmas specifically, we had, no joke, like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. And my sister and I, who were the only 2 siblings at the time, 1 present each. And that's all we could like get from her because she just didn't have the money.
Wow.
So, and then when I went to my dad's, who like those grandparents spoiled us alive, so did, other relatives in that side, his side of the family. But his narrative was constantly he couldn't afford. But if you were to look at his life, he had all the toys. He had ultralights and planes and a beautiful house, and he had really nice cars. He had motorcycles. He had scooters and mopeds. He had everything to me. He had a pool. I mean, that was kind of up where we lived, where we grew up. Having a pool was like a status symbol. And though it was a small pool, sure. But even with all that stuff around, because he didn't raise us, so to speak, every day, every week, I didn't... I will say I adopted some of his narrative with... Even though he's got all this, it's like he's hoarding money, but saying he can't afford. So my childhood mindset was just poor. Like the education that came through the observation was just, there'll never be enough and don't ask, there's nothing to spare. And I started working really young. I don't think I was as young as you, but same thing. I mean, my mom, we shopped at Goodwill like you guys tease me now because I still love thrifting. And everyone's like, oh, don't be cheap. Now it's more of a mindset of like conservation, reusing, recycle. Like I'm very conscious of that. But in the beginning, it was just like, no, it's cheaper. I need cheaper. And I have to guard myself against that for sure. So
I don't know where I got both my grandparents on my mom's side, he was a butcher that
it
was a
sounded
meat
like they were
cutter,
middle class,
and
upper
they
class
bought a
as well.
house and
Yeah.
paid cash for their house and had gold cougarons in the backyard. They were my grandparents' era was if you save money, it held its value. Because that was before
Yes,
the gold
and lots
standard
have
was
changed with
taken
money.
away.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
in going on, speeding this all up, our mindsets of money has been pretty bad. And then,
Yeah.
like, I came from the 80s where up through that era of credit cards. And I had a credit card at 18 years old. And I actually financed my first Trans Am at 18 on my own without my parents.
So that wasn't the first car. That was just your first like new car. Then the Trans Am.
Actually,
the
Trans
Corolla
Am
was used.
Corolla was used. My grandmother paid cash. I financed
Oh,
it
okay.
from her.
Okay. Oh.
But again, my grandmother, I remember one time she fell in love with the Eldorado Cadillac and called from Chicago to buy it. She was in Chicago on vacation. She called the banker on the phone, and this is before way.
Right. Yeah.
And say, look, I want to buy this car, and they
Release the money.
Release the money to this guy so I can drive away. And somehow they did something. Her name alone, just calling the bank, they said, and I think the Cadillac was $8,000.
So let me ask you a question, because this always comes up when it comes to money and white men. Do you think you had white privilege? The silence.
Wow. Probably.
See, and I've thought about this for myself, because my mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's white, and I've just heard my whole life all the and I've experienced the poverty. I mean, I think I shared in one of the food episode, if you look back to our food episode, of the scarcity and just digging through food to get our food as children. And like people would be like, oh, you have white privilege. I was just so assaulted by that, because to me, I didn't grow up with money. I didn't grow up with food. I didn't grow up with anything. But also at the same time, I also have to think it was available if I would have asked the right people. I could have educated myself if I would have gone one generation above my parents and just said, hey, how do I live this life? Because like I said, I feel like both sides of my grandparents, they were wealthier. Not wealthy, but well off.
When you ask that question about white privilege, I am a white male, and I'm not trying to justify. I grew up in a trailer park.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, when we think of where we came from, it doesn't feel like white
fucking
privilege.
mobile home, and the neighborhood. There was every race in my neighborhood.
You were a mixed bag. See, I did not grow up with a lot of races.
My high school, they were really trying to eliminate segregation.
They were trying to segregate the school. No, is that the word?
I'm not sure.
Segregate the school. No, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
integrate the schools.
I was bused across the high school I was going to go to. I did not go to where I was
slated for.
They changed the boundaries and I went to a high school that was
like an all-black school.
It was in the middle of the black neighborhood, and yeah, I probably was. I would say it was 90%, maybe 1 in 10 white people. You know, when there is, I don't know. That was a real experience for me. My best friend, Charles, and I, we were colorblind, and it was not even. I guess it was, because I remember going to a football game, and we lost, and we were coming out of the football team, and one of the opposing team, because I was a white boy at Ely, and said something, and out of the blue, kids I didn't even know supported me just because I went to their school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. He's getting a little emotional over here. So that's what I wanted to just ask you, because I know I've felt affronted, because I know the life I've lived, and it's been very sad and lonely and scary.
Was there privilege to it? I'm sure there was. Did I get some kind of... I don't know.
Well, I just wanted you to think about it, and
Probably.
and I'm just, I'm just saying my experience. Like, I've had people tell me that I've had white privilege, and I'm like, you don't even know where I came from. Like, you could call me white trash before you could call me white privilege.
Yeah,
because,
I would be white trash.
Because,
Yeah, I'd be white
because
trash
I
before I was white
didn't have
privilege.
luxury, and
mean-
I had to work. And because of the mindset that I absorbed and the observations I saw, I hoarded money. So you spent money like crazy. I hoarded money.
But because of, I spent money because of a standard I didn't want to be in. My parents were cheap. Maybe they had.
Yeah, I understand.
See, my grandfather on my mom's side and my grandmother on my dad's side both were not cheap.
Right.
My grandmother bought Cadillacs. My grandfather bought brand new houses. They were not cheap.
Yeah.
My parents, it seemed, were cheap, and I didn't learn that there's a difference between cheap and just being frugal.
Right.
But just plain, well, you're buying.
What do you say? Like, you travel 50 miles to save 5 cents on sugar?
It's true.
So that was probably me. I came to that on my own, of just realizing I'm going to buy cheap. Because if I think about it, I would probably say my mom bought cheap, because by the time she remarried and there was a lot of children and mouths to feed and chaotic, stressful home, like, we were always looking to save a buck. My biological father, I don't think he ever bought something cheap just because of the price tag. I think he always bought quality.
Well,
But I wasn't with him enough to absorb that behavior. So I was with my mom, and like, cheap was what I would buy. So I love that we have adopted a mindset at this point now. Like, let's pull ourselves forward a little bit of
I think a book
what that,
really
like, hold on, what the thought that you say all the time of, you'll pay for things twice.
Right.
And I've paid for things 1,000,000 times over, and so has others who buy cheap. But
I got that from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book.
book rec number 1.
Yeah, book rec number 1 today. Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book, yeah, he has a lot of great truths in there.
So I haven't read that one, but you did, like, bird feed it back to me a little bit.
Pay for things twice, so why not pay for it the first time?
Pay for quality.
Pay for quality. Like, and I've adapted this principle sort of in a restaurant situation. If you pre-tip it, tip at the beginning and tip at the end.
How do you do that?
Give the waitress a tip as you walk in the door, as you sit down. Thank you. I mean, there was someone in here the other day talking. Was it? And said the guy used to come around and pass out $100 bills.
Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, yeah.
Someone who works
just because,
yeah,
and I don't have $100 bills to pass out, but just the actual,
like, generosity. Yeah, and that's where I
generous.
can't say I've always lived in that, and that's something that, it's funny that you said that word. Like, when we just recently celebrated the flower moon that just passed, the full moon, we had a ceremony in our small town back here. So beautiful, so great. One of the intentions that I set for that was to live a more generous life. Not just financially, but every way. Because I have spent my life hoarding and keeping things close. From, money to my sexual preference, or just, like, not letting anyone in my boundaries. Like, sometimes I've kept too much walls, and I need to relax and let some of those down and, like, be more generous. So my book recommendation is Rich BFF. I think, or no, is it Rich BFF or Rich BFF by Vivian too. That just came out this year. But she's been on social media for a while. She's just a really great girl, really great energy, shares pretty much, and maybe Rich Dad Poor Dad did this. They pull what the rich and the wealthy and the, I'll say, privileged, regardless of the race or gender, pulling that into everyday people's lives, because you weren't taught appropriately how to manage money. We definitely were not taught in school. You were just taught math, but you weren't taught. I mean, I remember bouncing a $2 check when I was a teenager, when I first had a checkbook. I mean, and I was a money hoarder, and I still bounced a check.
I remember in high school, they assigned me home economics, and my dad...
I don't even think that exists anymore in school.
My dad flipped out because he thought that it was going to be sewing and typing and all that stuff. And it probably was. I did have a typing class I actually chose to take, but
that's another archaic thing, is gender roles and who's supposed to do what.
But I remember he getting mad because he thought that that's what was going to be bad, so I didn't even learn about economics in high school. The economics I learned were School of Hard Knocks, where your credit card company, you overextended yourself, and you found out that by the time I was 23, I was so, and that's the thing about some of these young people these days, they're in college, they have
buried in debt,
yeah. And have no focus on what they really want to do. It's just another
well, it's another
extension of
programming,
adolescence.
but it's another programming of you must do it this way, and if to be successful, you have to do A, B, and C, whatever that looks like for you, your culture, and what that narrative over and over and over again repeated to you is. It might be different for each people, but like in America, it's very much like you go to school, you get good grades. As soon as you're done school, you go to college. When you get done college, you get that job, and like that should set you up for life. And then you get married, then you have the house.
It's
then
the game of life we used to play.
It's really just, it's an archaic system at this point. I think people like our son's generation and younger are going to change this whole system and flip it on its head. And I'm really happy for that they're going to take different routes. But bringing it to today, where would you say your mindset for money is? Has it evolved in an improved way?
Wow. First off, I don't think it's real. It's just
Is that your mindset or money?
Oh, the money. Money is energy, and just like anything else, you can attract it, and and it has to flow. And so, if you hoard the energy, it's just
like I've done.
It's just it's like a cesspool, basically, and that's what happens nowadays. Since they have taken the gold standard away. It's just the attachment to our money is like a balloon in the air. It's nothing
backing
There's nothing
our
holding
money.
That balloon down. There's no more gold holding the balloon down to tell you that your $5 bill is worth $5.
Well, and our bills, regardless of what country they're in, they're just IOU notes too. Hey, I owe you this, and we're going to say it's over here.
Everybody's getting upset about. Well, we're going to go to Bitcoin, but we've changed the standard of money for a long time. I mean,
we always it used to be salt, or it was shells, or then now it's
since
dollar
the dollar
bills.
Bill. There's been the debit card. There's been
I see what you're saying.
You don't think that there's a digital?
Now it's digital.
Digital currency is the thing, and it's just going to evolve.
And I'm not going
to
to say
else.
I will say we're still evolving in our money mindset. We're still trying to work on understanding principles that we were not taught in our homes, in our families, because you're talking 50 years, 40 years, many years, decades of each of us individually, and then us coming together and doing it kind of wonky.
The biggest thing is ignorance.
Ignorance,
it's complete
absolutely.
Ignorance.
Yes.
Everybody trusts and says, "This is the law. You have to do this."
But the law was set up by people who don't want you to improve,
just someone
to
saying,
evolve,
let's just say go back, and I'm going to probably blow up the internet here with what I'm about to say.
Oh my God!
It's the law. You have to wear a mask. Fuck you.
Uh-oh.
No, I can do whatever. No, there is no fucking law.
Well, there is no law for that. But
there isn't. There never has been. There never will be. You can't do it, but you can say there's one.
Well,
and that's where a lot of the shit. These cops out here, God bless most of them, but they don't even know the fucking law they are backing. They don't. They just are telling you what they've been taught.
Regurgitating programming. Right. And that's where the whole point of this podcast is to reevaluate your programming. Is it beneficial?
YouTube video where the actual person questions the cop and has more knowledge of the law than they do. It's a whole clusterfuck of...
Well, and we had friends... I mean, we're totally getting off topic
yes,
now.
Yes, we
are. We had friends who are sovereign citizens, and we thought about that at a point ourselves, which just seems way too much of a headache at times.
Yeah.
But getting back to even money mindset now, I am working on improving my inner dialogue of my belief system of money.
Right.
Instead of hoarding it, because I will say, 5 years ago, we both, because I was a stay-at-home mom for a good season, we almost exactly verbatim followed our parents' path for a little while. When you and I got together, I became the stay-at-home mom. I homeschooled our son. We struggled financially. We got into debt. I started following all these horrible patterns I didn't want to repeat. And then by the time that our son got older, he was able to, he went to high school on his own. I thought, I'm going to get a job. Once I got a job, we had 2 incomes, and our finances exploded positively, I will say. But what we didn't know, you said something really well, ignorance. What I didn't know, what no one taught us, and what we didn't expose ourselves to enough people speaking truth, was that hiding your money under the mattress in today's day and age, you said your grandparents, it did make a difference, but not anymore. The dollar bill is tanking. So when I hoarded and saved the money in our safe in our house, it actually depreciated.
Well, think about it for a second. If inflation goes up every year, like last year, 8%, and your money that means every dollar you saved lost 8%.
But
it's
I didn't think that way.
That
it
dollar is
felt
now worth 92 cents.
To keep
So
it in my
next year it's
possession.
going to be worth 30 cents. By the time you've saved, the more longer you save that money, the less value it becomes.
But it didn't used to be that way.
No,
like in
because
the generations
gold,
prior.
and that's why we if we did just went back to a gold standard, inflation would actually not.
Well, it'd have a little more boundaries.
Yes.
But something that I am learning is, like I said, changing that narrative. And that is a me thing. Like we talked in other episodes about what things we do have control. I don't have control if the inflation happens.
You do not.
I don't have control if a medical emergency happens in our family and it's going to cost us an arm and a leg. I have control over my mindset in all of those moments. Right. And I have taken, here's maybe a suggestion for anyone who wants it, but this is what I have done, something that when I consulted myself and had my own time and meditation, realized some of these roadblocks in my life, I thought, I need a physical, tangible thing. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to plant seeds because we're coming into spring. We're going into summer here. We've been through this, whole season of winter, and so beautiful to see what spring does and what it looks like for us who've never had it. But I decided I'm going to get a planter in the shape of a head, and I found this really great one at Rich's down the street, the garden store, and it's a full head, and I put seeds in it, and I wanted to just start seeing as they bloom, like I'm going to nurture these seeds. And every time that I felt that I had a negative narrative coming up about money, that I would be like, no, let me go plant a seed. And remember there was like a little while where like I thought, wow, none of my seeds, I guess they're not working. This practice isn't working because I couldn't see any seeds. And now, like, if you look at my planter, I've got my buds. There's a ton of them coming out. So it was super encouraging. But for me, that was a mindset, a tangible tool that I could use to work on my mindset around money, because now I understand. And we've made in the last, 2 years, maybe, we've understood investments a little more. Right. You've been working in the actual investments, stocks and tradings, learning a lot there. I have been trying to absorb stuff around investments that make us money, and how to properly use credit cards to our benefit. Right. And this is where, like, Your Rich BFF by Vivian too, like, she brings a lot of wisdom from her Wall Street era, her time in different, around the wealthy. She didn't grow up wealthy, but around the wealthy, she brings a lot of those rules of the game into the real world for just poor people. So she brings education to the ignorant. So I really, I haven't got to read her whole book because it's on like back order or whatever. But we've got to hear a lot of her information, and some of it we're just like, oh my God, how did we not think of this? It's so obvious.
But even though, there is a story in the Bible where the person who takes the money and buries it in the sand
was like
was the one that was shunned and not allowed to come into the gates
and
of
criticized.
Heaven. It was the person who actually took their money and risked it in an investment. Money makes money.
And I've had to learn that because, like I said, I hoarded a ton of, and I mean, it made me feel like dopamine rush. Like when I would see our accounts as we both were working full-time jobs, even though I was spending so much physical, mental energy, I was really beat and tired during some of those early years of working full-time after being a stay-at-home mom for a good amount of time. It was hard transition, but like when all that money kept going into the account, into my physical cash, like envelopes, because we were literally keeping it in our house at the time. Like, it made me feel so excited. And that's the false illusion of safety, that in my house, in my possession, it's better than me losing it in an investment or putting it over here and then everything crashing, the digital, like how many times has Wells Fargo or different banks had people steal everything, get their information and take it all. So that was my mindset.
But the mindset is, if you go back, and I look at it as the game Sonic. You bumped into something and boom, all your coins went all over.
Oh yeah. I liked when you shared that before.
And
exactly.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because there's, just like the story in the Bible, there's manna out there. If you just go out there and find it. If you just go out there and get it every day,
and
there's
I think
manna.
that's been something I've been also, like, that's when I say I've been putting seeds into my little planter head. Is that what I would call it? It's putting a new thought like that in. Like, how many times have we started over? How many times have we, since being married, hit the bottom, been in the red? Like when we say we were broke, it was negative red. Not like some people like we have met in our history back years, decades ago, where they're like, oh, I don't have that much money. And then they find out they have thousands of dollars in their account. That wasn't our version of broke. But like I have realized, same as you kind of said, money's not real and it's just a game. This is all a game. Enjoy the life that you have. If you want something, get it. And just chill out. You want the avocado toast? Go get it. You want the coffee every day? Go get it. But make educated choices and decisions as well with your money, because like you said, it takes money to make money, and losing that fear of losing it all, I think is part of what I'm working with, of just, okay, so let's say we lose everything, then we start over. And I love something that our son said one time, of saying like, all right, fine, if I lost it all, guess what? I know how to get it back. I know how to start from zero.
Well, you've heard the saying, and we've said it probably 1,000 times. I don't know how true it is, but if they divided all the wealth in the world equally to everyone, within what, a year, it'd be all back to the same way it is.
No,
now.
No, actually, that wasn't that. It's people who win the lottery. They've done studies that people who win the lottery within 1 to 2 years are back to where they started. Because again, they're uneducated. They don't know. They just spend the money. They don't know to invest and how to invest.
Ignorance. When you study tax laws and all these things, and you learn that there are actual, and you're learning that in that book, that there are actual laws against poor people from even becoming richer, because they put in place so you cannot become.
Well, and there are wealthy families that have tried to for centuries they need the poor. I mean, and I'm not saying anything that's controversy or whatever here.
So what?
You can, no, but what I'm going to say, I should prelude, like, this isn't controversial speak. It's true. You can go find it. That Rockefeller said, I need a nation of workers, not thinkers.
Right.
So we created the education system we have to keep a nation of people that are poor. And so we are kind of wrapping. We said we'd be fast. I think we're over our fast time limit that we set in our mind. And we really could talk forever about this. But like, I just am so excited about how we're choosing to evolve with money. I do not think I've arrived. I feel like I have so much to learn as we read different things.
If anybody has anything to comment or help us, even recommend a book for us.
Yeah. So our 2 books were you recommended by Kiyosaki. Is his name? What's his name? Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
John Kiyosaki or something.
I can't remember the author of that because I didn't read that one. But my rec is Rich BFF by Vivian 2. Again, these are just people who have come from maybe poorer backgrounds and worked their way up and found out the rules and stuff along the way. And they're willing to tell the next generation and anyone who wants to listen. So I hope that you learned something, gleaned something, maybe located yourself in this episode of realizing, wow, I need to change some stuff. I need to change how I'm using my money, how I'm thinking about money, and how I want to build wealth from here forward. So, we haven't arrived, but thank you for listening, and we are working on evolving. And
till next time, be evolving.
Yeah, like, subscribe, comment for sure, and share those book recs, and definitely be evolving, people.